The California wildfires. This as the death toll from the northern Camp Fire rises to 71, and the number of people unaccounted for grows to more than 1,000. Good evening, I'm John Scott. This is the Fox Report. With the latest on that, Allison.
Good evening, John. The president has not submitted the answers just yet. He says that will happen this coming weeks. He claims he personally answered all 140 plus questions.
It's a lot of the things we asked for. There's some things, there are 4 or 5 big things left off. I think we'll probably get them too. But it's, as you know, it's a very complete list. I think it's 142 items. And that's a lot of items. I write the answers. My lawyers don't write answers. I write answers. I was asked a series of questions. I've answered them very easily. Very easily.
We reached out to President Trump's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, this morning, and so far have not heard back from him. The president maintains that the Russia probe is a witch hunt. Trump forced out Attorney General Jeff Sessions and named Matt Whitaker acting Attorney General. Democrats and some Republicans say that Whitaker is problematic in part because he's criticized the special counsel publicly in the past. There are also questions about the legality of his appointment. The argument there is that it violates the appointments clause of the Constitution. Democrats say the president named Whitaker as acting AG because he wants to derail the Russia probe. The White House says Whitaker has years of experience, and the DOJ deals with things well beyond the Russia probe. John?
There's been talk in Congress about some kind of legislation that would protect Mueller. Do we expect any kind of a vote?
Well, Democrats and some Republicans would really like for that to happen. Legislation was passed in committee this past spring. A bipartisan group of lawmakers say now is the time for a full Senate vote. Outgoing Arizona Senator Jeff Flake, a Republican who is a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, he says that he will not vote to confirm any judicial nominees until legislation protecting special counsel Robert Mueller is taken to the floor. He's getting support from Democrats with that idea. But again, both left and right are saying that they do think a vote should happen on that. Take a listen.
I think there's nothing lost by doing it, and there's possibly much gained, and it clears the air.
Whitaker has expressed hostility toward this probe. He's suggested ways to diminish it, to starve it of funding, for example. Why in the world we would be so sanguine about this and allow it to happen just is beyond me.
Senator Lindsey Graham was one of the original co-sponsors on that legislation to protect Mueller. He has said that he does not think holding up judges is a good idea. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has said that legislation protecting the special counsel, in his view, is not necessary. John?
Ellison Barber. Ellison, thanks. Florida is expected to finish up a hand recount this weekend to decide the contested Senate race between Republican Governor Rick Scott and Democratic incumbent Bill Nelson. The Scott campaign sounding confident about the end result.
Certification from the state is set for Tuesday, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
And is it your understanding that that will be certified and go as scheduled on Tuesday?
We believe it will. We believe that Tuesday these election results will be certified, and Governor Scott, Senator-elect Scott, will be heading to Washington.
Peter Ducey is in Lauderhill, Florida, with more on that. Peter.
John, there was quite a commotion here late this afternoon as the search for more than 2,000 missing early ballots began without the election supervisor, Brenda Snipes, telling anybody that her team was about to start handling boxes and boxes of those early ballots and wheeling them out of a locked cage. Republicans that I've spoken to are very concerned that Snipes isn't being very transparent about what's happening inside. And Democrats have pressed her all day to explain how 2,000 plus ballots just went poof, and she seems as puzzled as anybody.
The ballots are in the building. The ballots are in the buildings. Somebody must have put their stack in a tray where it didn't belong, and we didn't pick that up. So we continue to count. What we can do is go back and recount. The ballots are in this building. There would be nowhere else for them to be, but they are misfiled.
The hand recount only helped Democrat Bill Nelson get 274 votes closer to Rick Scott here in Broward, far short of the 12,000 plus that he needs. Plus, there's no indication that Nelson plans to concede right away, but that is something that the Democrat gubernatorial candidate Andrew Gillum just did. He tweeted this: "I want to congratulate Ron DeSantis on becoming the next governor of the great state of Florida. My wife, Arjai, and I could not be prouder of the way we ran this race. We could not be more thankful to my running mate, Chris King, FL, and his wife, Kristen." Gillum had been pushing people to keep going to election facilities until 5 o'clock today. That was the deadline to go and fix a ballot if the supervisor sent a letter that there was a problem with your signature not matching the ballot versus their records. That ended just a little more than an hour ago, and a few minutes afterwards is when Gillum finally called it quits. John.
Peter Doocy. Thanks, Peter. Meanwhile, the state of Georgia officially has certified Republican Brian Kemp as its next governor. The contested race coming to an end after a court-ordered review of absentee, provisional, and other uncounted ballots. Here is the governor-elect.
We have laws on the books that prevent elections from being stolen from anyone. I received the most votes of anybody that's ever run for governor in the state of Georgia, and I'm proud of that. And I said earlier, you know, Stacey Abrams ran one heck of a campaign. It's a tough business, politics. But the fact of the matter is the election is now over.
Stacey Abrams, the Democrat, acknowledged Friday night she could not defeat Kemp. She promises, though, to file a federal lawsuit challenging gross mismanagement of Georgia elections. President Trump stumping for Nancy Pelosi?
I would help Nancy Pelosi if she needs some votes. She may need some votes. I will perform a wonderful service for her. I like her. Can you believe it? I like Nancy Pelosi. I mean, she's tough and she's smart.
So will Pelosi need help from the president or the GOP to become Speaker of the House? Plus, the U.S. intelligence community reportedly making a conclusion in the death of columnist Jamal Khashoggi. What President Trump has to say about those findings. And the migrant caravan is closer than ever to the United States, reaching Tijuana, Mexico, near San Diego, California. We will have a live report next.
This isn't so much about escaping fear and persecutions because of race, religion, or political affiliation. This is about getting to the United States for a better life. You don't qualify, so most of them will be turned around and sent home.
To our country, like in the old days, like for years and years, they catch and release. We're not releasing. They don't get released.
That's President Trump on what will happen to migrants who enter the United States as the migrant caravan is getting closer to our southern border. The first group from the caravan reaching Tijuana, Mexico, they want asylum in the United States. Thousands more expected to join them soon. William Lajeunesse is live in Tijuana with more. William.
Well, John, this is where the caravan originally wanted to make camp, the beach, but the locals said no. I also want to show you here, you can see where the Border Patrol has now put up that razor wire. You have a good look at it here, not just on the top, but also on the back side, so people can't just jump in. They get torn up pretty bad. I also want to take you over here, John. Up on the top, there was a protest here last night, again by the locals, showing that the opinion is really divided about whether they like the migrants here or not. The mayor actually supports the local people here. He doesn't want them here. The reason why? They're going to be here probably a long time. According to the governor, 6 months to 18 months. The number today, 2,600, expected to double to more than 6,000. They're also realizing, the migrants, that they're in a rock and a hard spot. They don't have a lot of options. They can no longer just walk over the border, claim asylum, and be accepted. In fact, they're feeling misled by some of the caravan leaders that they weren't told more.
So he says that he doesn't believe any longer about the political asylum. They were lied when they came down here. And now they happen to realize that the people who already applied, they're getting returned back to their countries.
They're also saying that the border is more difficult to cross than they originally thought. For Donald Trump, this is a line in the sand in Tijuana, trying to send a message to others in Central America who are watching this play out that catch and release is over or not.
If they have such fear and such problems and they hate their country, why do we see all the flags being waved? For Guatemala, for Honduras, for El Salvador, we're seeing flags all over the place. Why are they waving flags? This has nothing to do with asylum. This has to do with getting into our country illegally.
So now the police have made about 7 arrests, some for drunk disorderly, some for drunk, some for fighting. But, John, there's a march organized by Sin Fronteras tomorrow, a march against discrimination. The question will it be here to the beach or out to the port of entry? John?
William Lajeunesse in Tijuana. Thank you. Not far to the north of where William is, President Trump has just landed at Naval Base Ventura County, formerly the Port Mugu Naval Air Station. He is there to examine the aftermath of the fire that's been burning in Southern California. He was in Northern California checking out the effects of the Camp Fire earlier today. But he's now traveled to Southern California. He'll be looking at the fire that has burned there. And it's been a pretty grim day for the president, having to tour all of the spectacular and horrible damage from the fire. More than 1,000 people still listed as missing as a result of those fires in California. We'll keep an eye on the travel of the president as he heads towards Southern California and this particular visit. Meantime, in Texas, residents along the state's border with Mexico lashing out after Customs and Border Protection announced 2 new border wall projects would begin in the region next February. Madeline Rivera is in the Rio Grande Valley with more.
All of this vegetation over here will be eliminated.
As executive director of the National Butterfly Center, Mariana Trevino-Wright is preparing for the inevitable. In more than 3 months, government contractors will be on the nature preserve, building along the levee road that divides the property.
An 18-foot vertical concrete slab wall, and on top of that, 18-foot steel bollards.
One wall would stretch 6 miles, the other an additional 8. 2 projects totaling $312 million. Brought on by President Trump, who repeatedly calls for increased border security.
Here we are on the Rio Grande River.
But Trevino-Wright doesn't believe this is about securing the border. The river, which separates the U.S. from Mexico, is about a mile south of the expected construction site.
They are creating a landing and staging area instead of defending the actual border, which is here.
On the other hand, security experts say there's a reason why these locations were chosen.
And it's probably predicated upon intelligence based on flows, arrests, traffic.
Customs and Border Protection sees the Rio Grande as the busiest sector in the country. Just last year, they arrested 137,000 illegal border crossers and seized 260,000 pounds of marijuana and 1,192 pounds of cocaine.
Hidalgo County is 47 to 53% of all illegal crossers into the United States for the last 6 years.
Othel Brand, who works along the river, says he's seen a drop in illegal activity after the first border wall was built.
I believe in securing the border. The wall's a component, but it's not the sole answer.
The National Butterfly Center says the wall would separate 70 acres or 70% of their property. CBP, meanwhile, says they do meet with landowners and listen to their concerns to see how they can incorporate that to the design of the wall. John?
Madeline Rivera, thank you. It's all hands on deck in California as officials there try to locate more than 1,000 people unaccounted for in the devastating northern Camp Fire. An update on that and what the latest forecast could mean for firefighters on the ground. Plus, President Trump offering Nancy Pelosi his help in winning back the speakership. Will she need Republican votes to get across the finish line?
Nancy Pelosi has been a very effective speaker. She's an effective legislator, and it's like, you know what? When you just won the Super Bowl, you don't fire the quarterback.
The full cover of haze and the smell of smoke greeting President Trump right now in California, I should say, as he is touring the scorched aftermath of the Camp Fire. The president just landing moments ago in Southern California, getting ready to tour the Woolsey Fire. The wildfire is claiming 74 lives statewide so far, with more than 1,000 people still missing. Local residents helping out with the grim search.
The real victims, the people of Paradise, it's decimation like I've never seen in my life. Just yesterday, we saw a woman keeping her 11-day-old baby warm in the Walmart parking lot with a hairdryer. We met a woman in her 4th stage of chemo with 2 of her children with her in one of the shelters in Orville. She doesn't know if her other 2 children made it out. It's truly unparalleled devastation that is very difficult to understand.
For a look at weather conditions firefighters are facing in California, Adam Klotz is live in the Fox Extreme Weather Center. Adam.
Hey there, John. Unfortunately, there's still plenty of areas where those high fire dangers are still in place and some of those conditions that allow it to be so. This is a satellite and radar. The last 6 hours, it has been bone dry. It's going to stay dry at least the next couple of days. The relative humidity is very low. You start to see some of these darker colors. That's getting out down to 25% to 10% relative humidity, which just means there's no moisture in the air. Moisture in the air would obviously help fight some of these fires. So as a result, there still are locations where the fire danger is high, where fires could spread or new fires could still start. And you're looking at areas, again, around Paradise where the campfire is. So a large area there where we're still paying very close attention with those red flag warnings. But even if you're not right next to where these fires are, the smoke has become very bad. Air quality alerts now stretching to the south and the central portions of central California as well. You get into some of these areas and it's indicating levels with particles in the air, unsafe for children, unsafe for the elderly, anyone with respiratory issues, and even a healthy adult to spend long periods of time outside in this. It's just not a good situation because there's so much in the air. It happens to settle right where it is there in the center part of the state because of the topography of the state. You've got the Sierra Nevadas off to the east, and then right along the coast, you've got some of the coastal mountains. You get all of this smoke from those wildfires with nowhere to go. It's kind of stuck there. It's sitting there waiting for perhaps either some strong winds or some rains to eventually knock it out of the area. Occasionally, you do see some of this very heavy smoke sneak down to the coast, kind of through some of these valleys getting towards San Francisco. We saw that yesterday where they had very heavy smoke inhalation there. Now, Futurecast, John, this is where we might begin to see some positive changes. It does take a while. I'm running you all the way here into the middle of the week. So from now throughout the rest of the weekend, unfortunately, the fire danger is high. Monday and Tuesday still dry, but by the time we get into late Wednesday, we do have a large system that's going to be working its way onshore. All the air quality alerts are expected to disappear when this moves onshore there late Tuesday into Wednesday. Likely rain for this area Wednesday and Thursday, John. So finally, there's something to look forward to as far as some weather that's going to help, but it's still several days off.
Yeah, that will be welcome. Adam Klotz, thank you. Fox's Chris Wallace sitting down with President Trump in an exclusive interview discussing possible reasons for California's rise in devastating wildfires.
What about the argument it's climate change, that it's drier, it's hotter, and that that's contributing to it?
Maybe it contributes a little bit. The big problem we have is management. When I was in a certain state, I won't say which, the governor said, you know, we've tested it. We clean out areas, and we actually set the fire just to see. We lose almost nothing. We can put it out right away. And then we leave areas unmaintained. He said, we'll lose 100,000 acres before you even know it. You need forest management.
Be sure to catch Chris Wallace's entire exclusive interview with President Trump, airing tomorrow at 2 and 7 p.m. Eastern here on Fox News Channel, or check the local listings to see when it airs on your local Fox station. Meanwhile, President Trump is doubling down a pledge to help Nancy Pelosi overcome some Democratic opposition as she looks to win back her old job as Speaker of the House.
The president of your country is doing a great job, but he's being harassed. It's presidential harassment. Well, in a way, her own party's harassing her. There's nobody else should be speaking. Now, that doesn't mean for 100 years, but certainly they should start off with Nancy Pelosi as Speaker. And I already have a lot of votes. If she needs any votes, if she asks me, I will give her the votes to put her over the top.
Joining us now, Jordan Fabian, White House correspondent for The Hill. Politics can make for some strange bedfellows. Republicans just spent months vilifying Nancy Pelosi before the elections. Why would a Republican president offer to help her win the Speaker's chair back?
Well, John, I think one way of looking at this is that the president likes to keep his opponents off balance. And what he's done after losing control of the House after the midterm elections is basically say to Democrats, look, we can have it one or two ways. We can work together, I can dangle some goodies out there like infrastructure or even votes for Pelosi for Speaker, and we can work together, or you can investigate me and we could clash and I can investigate you back. So I think you can look at this as part of that mode the president's in, still trying to sort through the wreckage of the midterm elections and come to some kind of strategy in dealing with the new Democratic majority in the House.
He is the deal maker in chief, and he wants to practice the art of the deal here, it sounds like.
That's one way of looking at it, John. But it's still doesn't appear to be some kind of complete strategy, because on the other hand, you have the president really forcing the Democrats' hand into launching investigations against him. First by firing or ousting Attorney General Jeff Sessions and replacing him with Matt Whitaker, somebody who's been very critical of the Russia investigation and somebody who Democrats really want to investigate for that reason. So the president almost forcing the Democrats' hand to come out against him, even as he dangles this possible bipartisan nirvana in the next year.
And in the meantime, Nancy Pelosi has not been exactly helpful to the president. She is talking about investigating Andrew Wheeler, his choice to be acting attorney general.
That's right, John. And the Democrats really want to investigate a wide array of things in the Trump administration and even some of the president's business practices. So they're facing a lot of pressure from their base to be aggressive with this president and not hand him any sort of big wins before the 2020 election. So both sides are really trying to feel out one another, how this is going to work in the new year. But this is going to be a very complicated situation to work through with that presidential election looming in the near future.
Here's part of a statement that Nancy Pelosi issued earlier today regarding the president's EPA nominee. She says President Trump's nomination of Andrew Wheeler to head the Environmental Protection Agency perpetuates the unprecedented culture of corruption, cronyism, and abuse of taxpayer money at the heart of this administration. Democrats are ready to oppose the administration's dirty energy agenda and will continue to work for the people to clean up corruption to ensure our government works for everyone. This is the woman of whom the president said in that soundbite we played at the top, he says he likes Nancy Pelosi.
Right. We've seen the president's tune completely change on this, by the way. Before the election, I was out on the road at many of these rallies he was holding for his supporters. And the number one bogeyman in his speech was Nancy Pelosi, basically telling voters, if you don't elect this Republican to the House, Nancy Pelosi will be Speaker and she'll basically run the country into oblivion. And now he's saying he wants to work with her. But again, this is part of the president's style. He keeps people off balance. And I would say, too, that the president surprised a lot of people last year when he struck that budget deal with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, essentially pushing the Republicans aside. That's something that really surprised Republican leaders in the House. And now they're going to have even less leverage next year. So something a lot of the president's conservative supporters are really worried about is that he'll stray from them and try to work together and cut some major deals with Democrats.
It doesn't sound, though, like there's a lot of organized opposition to Nancy Pelosi. Marcia Fudge is one who has floated a trial balloon about running against her, says she'll decide in the next couple of days. Here's what she had to say.
She has been a great leader for us. She has been a wonderful speaker, a minority leader. I just think that we need some change. We ran on change, and I think we should have change.
Could this be one of those situations? We know that the two of them met yesterday. Could this be a situation where Marcia Fudge says, okay, Nancy, I won't challenge you, but I need, a little payback?
Yeah, John, that's where it seems like this is moving, where the progressive opposition to Pelosi and some others in the caucus, are trying to get some concessions from her, maybe try to expand the power of some of these younger members who are really hungry to climb the leadership ladder in the House, which is, of course, dominated by Nancy Pelosi, Steny Hoyer, and Jim Clyburn, both over 70 years old and been in their positions for a long time. In these leadership elections, you really need somebody to come forward quickly in order to have a chance of succeeding. And the fact that Nancy Pelosi does not have a challenger in this race, it does not bode well for her opponents, even as she struggles to get those votes that she needs to get over that 218 vote threshold.
Jordan Fabian from The Hill, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
A quick correction. Earlier in the program, while reporting on President Trump answering questions from Special Counsel Robert Mueller, our correspondent Ellison Barber misspoke. She said the president had answered 142 questions. However, that number was actually in reference to a question regarding Chinese tariffs. It is unknown at this time how many questions from Mr. Mueller the president actually has answered. We apologize for that error. U.S. intelligence officials reportedly concluding that Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman ordered the killing of columnist Jamal Khashoggi. That according to a U.S. official. The Saudi government denies that accusation, with Saudi Arabia's top diplomat having said the Crown Prince had absolutely nothing to do with the killing.
We're taking a look at it. You know, we also have a great ally in Saudi Arabia. They give us a lot of jobs. They give us a lot of business, a lot of economic development. I'm president. I have to take a lot of things into consideration.
Kitty Logan is in London with more.
Hi, John. Well, the State Department says there is no conclusion yet about who ordered the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. Earlier reports had indicated a possible link to the Saudi Crown Prince. Jamal Khashoggi was killed after entering the Saudi consulate in Istanbul last month. An earlier report in the Washington Post says the CIA believes the Saudi Crown Prince himself ordered the murder. This is apparently based on intelligence on calls made around the time of the killing. But the State Department says these reports are not accurate. President Trump was briefed on these latest developments as he flew to California. He has previously said he believes the Saudi Crown Prince was not involved. Jamal Khashoggi entered the consulate on October 2nd to collect documents for his upcoming wedding. The Saudi government has admitted he was killed there, saying it happened by accident. They initially denied knowing what had happened to him. The Saudi authorities now blame the killing on a group of 17 men. 5 of those are facing the death penalty. The US government has also imposed sanctions on the alleged killers. Yesterday, symbolic funeral prayers were held for Khashoggi in Saudi Arabia and Turkey. His body has still not been found. He was a fierce critic of the government in Saudi Arabia and lived in the US. The Saudi government has, of course, always denied any involvement in the killing, but it has placed US-Saudi relations under strain, and the two countries do have many ties, as you know. John?
Kitty Logan, thank you. El Chapo is on trial in New York City as he faces life in prison. Coming up, fascinating details on how the accused drug lord was captured. Guzman got underway this week. El Chapo faces life behind bars if convicted on a multitude of charges, accusing him of running a brutal Mexican cartel. During the trial, El Chapo's defense team reportedly said he was a pawn whose power in the cartel was exaggerated. Federal prosecutors refute that claim. They say El Chapo made billions of dollars trafficking cocaine to the U.S. in partnership with Colombian cartels. Meantime, we learn new details about what it took to bring him to the U.S. to face justice. Catherine Herridge has those details.
I came from a wonderful family of law enforcement. I never thought that I would enter in a world of drug trafficking.
We have to constantly hide. We have to constantly remember our lies.
You're sitting here with wigs and glasses, and how are you living your everyday lives?
I've moved several times just because of the security issue that I've been faced with. Like I said, I've been hunted.
Who's hunting you?
The Mexican cartel.
Stepping slightly out of the shadows, Olivia and Mia Flores, not their real names, grew up daughters of Chicago police officers. They are speaking out for the first time about their lives on the run and have written a book called Cartel Wives. The women are married to identical twin brothers, Pedro and Margarita Flores. The brothers rose from being local street drug dealers in the Windy City to running Joaquim El Chapo Guzman's drug empire in the U.S. In 2012, they were each sentenced to 14 years in prison for smuggling 71 tons of cocaine and heroin and $2 billion in cash. The Flores brothers were flipped by the DEA and key to bringing El Chapo to U.S. justice.
Your husbands are the principal witnesses at trial.
Yes, they were the first to ever get Chapo Guzman on a recorded conversation.
They spoke English. They knew the U.S. inside and out. They knew the roads. They knew how to maneuver in the U.S. And that's something Chapo and his team didn't know how to do.
Our husbands, they ran their business like a Fortune 500 company.
They have safe houses, they have couriers, they have transportation systems.
They had tractor trailers with compartments that would be able to move the drugs from LA to Chicago and the money back down to Mexico. They used to work at McDonald's, and they picked up a system where their stash workers would not cross paths with their money counters.
I think it was the largest criminal entity the world's ever seen.
Get him out! Get him out!
That's Jack Riley in action during his 33-year career at the DEA. The just retired deputy administrator spent more than a decade hunting El Chapo.
Look, I hate the guy.
Was it personal for you?
When I was on the border some 10 years ago, slugging it out with what was going on in Juarez, he put a bounty on my head.
He put a hit on you.
Yeah, I was a little upset about it because it was only $100,000, but he put a bounty to have someone cut my head off. So it is personal with me. Right now, I got to tell you, I like where I sit, and I kind of like where he's sitting too. I saw that guy kill thousands of people in Mexico. I was there.
What would you say to the families whose lives were destroyed by those drugs?
We are very remorseful for the damage that's been caused. Our husbands, they denounced that life, and they tried to take something so negative and they tried to dismantle what they helped build, and that was bringing Chapo Guzman to a U.S. courtroom.
I understand. I'm a mother. I love my children, and it could be one of them also. But at the end of the day, what our husbands did, they put a dent in the drug trade. We did our part to say, I'm sorry, and we denounced this life.
Catherine Herridge, Fox News.
El Chapo's accused of trafficking cocaine, but there's another epidemic gripping the nation: opioids. One state takes an unusual step to combat the problem. That's ahead. Plus, are you enraged by endless robocalls? Well, help is on the way. That story coming up. Walgreens and CVS claiming they added to the state and national opioid crisis by overselling painkillers and not doing enough to stop illegal sales. Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi says those companies failed to stop suspicious orders of opioids and dispensed unreasonable quantities of opioids from their pharmacies. A CVS spokesperson says the lawsuit is, quote, without merit. Walgreens declines comment on the suit. Well, consumers rejoice. An attack plan is in the works to combat billions of those illegal robocalls that have turned mobile phones into weapons of mass frustration. Jackie Heinrich is here to tell us about it. Jackie.
It would be welcome news for many. The bill would dramatically increase penalties for scammers and also improve methods to block fake calls and authenticate real ones. Legislators say that it's high time something is done with spoof calls reaching epidemic levels. The TRACED Act was introduced yesterday by Senators Ed Markey of Massachusetts and John Thune of South Dakota. If it's passed and signed into law, the TRACED Act would broaden the authority of the Federal Communications Commission, allowing them to levy abusers with fines up to $10,000 per call. The bill comes as data analyzer First Orion released staggering new numbers, estimating that from 2017 to 2018, the rate of scam calls jumped more than 25%. Now they say nearly half of all calls to mobile phones will be fraudulent in 2019 unless the industry adopts and implements more effective call protection solutions. One of the most popular methods is neighborhood spoofing. A scammer disguises their phone number as a local number to try to get cell phone users to pick up the phone. Well, if they do, they're likely to get repeat robocalls, and there are a few ways to prevent them.
They usually mask it, and it's a 212 number, so I figure it's New York. It might be somebody I work with or know.
I get the same phone call at 11 o'clock at night from the same number every single day. So how do you feel about that? It's really annoying.
It gives you the impression it's somebody you know or somebody you think you should know or a local business that you may be doing business with that's calling you. You can put yourself on the do not call registry because if it's a scammer, they don't care about the list.
Lawmakers have been trying to go after robocall companies for some time, but the current laws are pretty lax. The TRACED Act would require that voice service providers adopt technology to authenticate calls. John.
Welcome news. Jackie Heinrich, thank you. Well, celebrating a major milestone at a big money auction event for the world's most famous mouse. That's still to come on the Fox Report.
We're talking some of the rarest animation posters in the world. And animation is one of the best and most collected genres, with Mickey Mouse being the most celebrated character.